Hold up on that car wash, gentlemen.
Rob Kibbe.
Don't tell me. You're from outer space.
No, I'm from Iowa. I only work in outer space.
Mike Finnegan.
Go that way, really fast. If something gets in your way, turn.
Two guys talking cars.
I am a semi-professional race car driver and an amateur tattoo artist.
Taking on the most serious topics.
But we will give nothing back to the academic community, as well as provide no public service of any kind. This much I promise you.
And the Dukes of Hazzard. On iTunes, Stitcher, and whatever else it is you listen on. The Kibbe and Finnegan Show.
Kibbe and Finnegan Show, episode number 86, a special edition Corndog deep dive, beginning with a John Schneider update on Dancing with the Stars. This is week 2 of Dancing with the Stars 2018. John Schneider Lookout Watch is upon us. Corndog, what is the latest?
Well, I'm not a fan of Dancing with the Stars, so let me go on and put that out there. He just danced, so I watched it, and I think he got like 2 8s and a 7. So,
is that out of a 10?
Yes.
10's the best?
I would guess, yes.
Okay. Was there a Dodge Charger in this one?
No. It was like a New York theme or something, so I didn't get the gist of it. I was busy running around doing other stuff, so I watched his dance, and I got away from the TV.
For those that didn't see it, so John Schneider's in Dancing with the Stars, and this is something, it's no longer super A-list stars, obviously, that participate in this.
It's bottom of the barrel stars right now. They're scratching.
Well, his first one a week ago, and we're recording this on October 1st, so a week ago he came out with an orange Dodge Charger, only it was a 70 Dodge Charger with kind of weird Krager SS wheels, and obviously the passenger side wheels were gone. They had some kind of dollies on them to move the car around, I guess.
Yeah.
And then it had number 10 on the doors.
Yeah.
And both of those things annoyed me greatly. I cannot tell you how much I did not, just don't have it out there.
I would have rather just seen just an orange Charger and just left it at that. You know, it didn't even need an 01 or 10 or whatever on it.
My biggest pet peeve is a 70 or a 71 body style through 74 when they're done up like General Lee's. I remember it as
or
when I was
a newer model Challenger.
Don't like that either. But when I was 8 years old, a guy in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, got written up in the paper for making his own General Lee out of a Dodge Charger, and I saw it once, and it was like a 72. And I remember thinking, what is happened to humanity?
He doesn't even get an A for effort.
No. Why does he have an article in the paper? This is news. And that's when I started learning how the news really works. Right.
I meant to tell you this too. I told my friend in Australia, you know, as soon as news broke about John Schneider being on Dancing with the Stars, my wheels started turning, and I thought, you know what? I know at some point they're going to do something Dukes of Hazzard theme. And so I was messaging with my buddy in Australia, and I said, the first thing I searched for is where is it recorded. I didn't know if it was in New York or if it was in where it was, but it's in Los Angeles at the CBS Studios, I think it is. So, of course, I start thinking, okay, Warner Brothers still has a General Lee in storage. And I thought, well, maybe they'll do it. Of course, they're going to do a Dukes of Hazzard theme dance at some point, which it happened to be his first one. And 2, I'm thinking they're going to need a General Lee because, granted, they'll probably cover the flag up and all that, but I thought, maybe we'll get to see the General Lee that's been in storage at Warner Brothers, but they didn't even go as far as that. I mean, they had a General Lee in storage, but didn't even use it.
I've heard different reports about that car, that it's in storage and it's staying in storage, meaning it's not going to be pulled back out to be in the Warner Brother car feature area that you would see on a tour.
I highly doubt it.
That's kind of a bummer, but nonetheless. Well, everybody, welcome to the show. Mike's out doing roadkill this week. So this is our chance to do another well-received, well-loved Corndog deep dive. And, of course, we have your own intro. It is right here.
Get me a corn dog, get a boss of half a dozen. That's it.
It never gets old.
So, and by the way, you can get this show on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and on the musclecarplace.com. And here's how we're funding today's episode. 2 ways. Patreon and kfshowshirts.com. And speaking of the latter first, we need a new design, a new Corndog design. So submit your entries. The winner, I will purchase you your own Corndog sweatshirt design, which is the most expensive option there is, I have learned. And in fact, you might get 2. I suppose in fairness, you should get a cut of this. So we'll put that in there too. And get that all out there. But if you'd like a shirt, especially, hey, Christmas is only 85 days away. Go to kfshowshirts.com to select your shirt. I got a notice from T-Chip, which is where we sell our shirts, that are on the muscle car place. I have a really cool bandit shirt that my friend Kirk Hansen designed. I got a notice that I had a copyright violation.
Really?
And I replied real quick and I said, hey, this is our own artwork. We made this, and nowhere on here does it say Smokey and the Bandit. It's just a kind of an image
silhouette of a car.
It's a silhouette of a car jumping, and it just says the word bandit on it. And they immediately lifted the ban. I have another ban going, though, right now. And it's with me and Mike, and the shirt says one is wholesome and the other is a mini trucker. It's our pictures on it, and that one has been banned.
Really?
For copyright violation, and I have to do this whole legal submission to prove that A, it's our artwork, and B, it's our faces. It's crazy how the world works.
You didn't realize how famous you actually are, did you?
It's not me. I'm pretty sure it was a finicking copyright violation, but what's amazing is they just took my word for it that we didn't break the bandit, but for Finnegan, I got to get a lawyer. How about that?
Wow. So
that was at kfshowshirts.com and Patreon. Once a month, we have a Patreon show where Mike and I answer questions a lot like we're going to do here with Corndog, but this is a deep dive show, and it's just one more way we keep the trains rolling. We keep Bernie paid. We keep the trains on time.
Keep things fresh.
Keep things fresh. We're certainly not going to retire from it, but it's nice to be able to pay people, and that's good news. So here's what we're going to do today. So I put out ahead of time a request on Instagram and through email, a bunch of questions. So we're not going to do a theme today. We're not going to do a specific show. It's just a bunch of random questions, and I know that you've kind of prepared for that. I have my own questions for you, but we're going to start on something you shouldn't be prepared for, but I'll bet you just know off the top of your head.
Okay.
Somehow, this has kind of come to the mix as of late. It's the Daytona from Joe Dirt, the movie Joe Dirt.
Right.
I'm sure you've given me the story on this car before, but what is the real story? Because in the movie, it's this ratted out, clapped out, horrible 69 Daytona Charger that's just on death's door. Chain steering wheel, no interior, smokes, column shift, just a bad car. But I've seen a picture under the hood, and that thing's a plumb crazy purple.
Show car.
It's a wonderful car. So what is the story on Joe Dirt's Daytona?
Well, first of all, it is a clone. Second of all, I do not know much of the backstory on the car, like what condition it was in when they purchased it. But like you said, the engine bay, the door jambs, everything is like show car, plumb crazy purple. I don't know if the car who knows, the car may have just been jammed out and the body was in primer. And then whenever they sold it, it was just a halfway finished car. Either way, the crew who prepped that car, they, of course, dolled it all up to look like a beater and piece of junk, and like put injectors to inject smoke into the exhaust so that it would constantly smoke, but it's actually a good running car.
Do you know what the drivetrain is? Is it a 383? Is it a 440 car? What is it?
I don't recall. I've seen a picture of the engine bay, but I do not. I know it's 99% sure it's a big block, but I don't know if it's a 383 or 440 right off the top of my head. But the car's privately owned, and I believe it's still out on the West Coast somewhere. A friend of mine has seen it in past years, probably not here recently, but in past years he would see it at local Mopar shows and whatnot. But I don't know the last time that it's actually been out in public, though.
Was it in the second Joe Dirt movie that went, straight to Netflix?
No. At that point, it was already privately owned. The second Joe Dirt movie, it was only made here in the last 2 or 3 years. I saw it one time, and I just about couldn't even bear to watch it. I don't know what car was actually in that one. I saw it, but I'm drawing a blank on what car was even on that one.
I don't either, and Adam Sandler must have this Netflix deal to crank out 2 or 3 different movies a year. That's a Happy Madison production. I will tell you, there's another car in Joe Dirt here that made me go pull this clip for you to see if you could diagnose it. Now, where did I stick it? It's the one that says Hemi. Here we go.
Oh my God. Competition Orange 67. This thing's a Hemi. Ma'am, are you selling this car?
Oh, yeah. I literally just went onto the market.
Well, how much you want for it?
Oh. What do you got?
Practically nothing.
And that is not the Daytona, of course. That's a different car. Is that a GTX? What is it?
Yeah, 67 Plymouth GTX convertible. That is, from what I understand, is the hero car from Tommy Boy.
Awesome. Just painted up?
Just repainted, yes.
Now, do you know the details on the hero car from Tommy? Because you've told me the story on some of the other Tommy Boy cars, like the one that was really a four-door and that was in a Justin Bieber video or something?
Yeah, in a Justin Bieber video. And I don't remember the name of the video, and I couldn't bear to watch it. But I saw some behind-the-scenes pictures. It was either at Warner Brothers in the city streets set, or it may have been just another similar production lot. And they caught it on fire and burned it up. And I think they still actually have it, but it's just a burn-up car now. It was just a four-door.
Are these owned by Warner Brothers, or are these owned by a production
They've
company?
changed hands. I don't think Warner Brothers owns them. It was CVS, Cinema Vehicle Services.
Mm-hmm.
It was them, and then it was Picture Car Warehouse. You know, they're all in the same business of just renting out cars for productions and commercials and TV and all that. And so they kind of rotate inventory as well. They'll buy and sell and trade and swap. And so cars kind of float around, but they're all still kind of being used for the same thing. But most of the time they'll have, if you look at their inventory list, they'll have 2 or 3 of one type of vehicle. It could be like a 67 Buick Riviera, and they'll have 3 of them on their inventory list. And it's just for that reason. They can fix up a few cars the same way.
Yeah. I used to do a podcast show with my friend Dan Kahn, who owns, I think, the most successful automotive PR company that services the aftermarket now, called Kahn Media. But way back when we started doing a show, I flew out to California, hung out with him for a few days. And he took me, I'm pretty sure it was Picture Car Warehouse. It was one of the 2 that you mentioned. But we walked in the front door, and it's a showroom, like a car dealership. And sitting in the showroom window was the yellow VW bus from Little Miss Sunshine, that movie. And then we just started walking around the back lot. And they're providing you a car, but they're providing you multiple versions of the car. And I clearly remember when we got to the part where we found all of the Chrysler Imperials from, what was the movie with Seth Rogen? Yeah, Green Hornet.
Uh-huh.
All of them were back there, including the ones that were cut in half. Every single one of them. They had not provided them for the movie. They had purchased them from the other company that did.
Oh, okay.
And it was just like you said, but if you saw a silver Toyota Corolla, you'd see 4 of them. They're all identical. Their job is to provide multiple cars, and they had a paint shop there, and they're painting outside. They're just getting cars.
You look at the paint jobs on them, they are terrible. They will have especially like the Corolla you're talking about. That's not a fancy, a show car that they're going to take good care of, so they're going to just paint it 15 times if they have to and won't think twice about it.
Yeah. But anyway, back to this GTX, I guess the Tommy Boy car. Is that a real Hemi car? Do you know anything about it?
It may not even be a real GTX. It possibly could be a real GTX, but a GTX convertible is going to be pretty rare. It wouldn't surprise me if it was just a satellite convertible and they just, badged them up. And then, of course, the cars that they used from a distance, like I think, if I'm not mistaken, the car that they used on the scene where the deer was in the car and it was just trying to beat and bang its way out of the car, and they just jumped out of the car and they're standing there watching this deer tear this car to pieces. I think that was one of the 4-doors as well. Before PETA gets mad, I don't think it was a real deer in there.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was animated or robotic or something. Who knows?
On that note, let's get to the Corndog's monthly deep dive of Instagram questions. And let me just pull this up. These are in no particular order. I'm just going to read them as they came in. So here's the first question. This is from Walking Bad 25. Corndog, not including second-gen Chargers, what is your dream car?
Of the Mopars, my 2 favorite are, of course, a 69 Charger and a 69 Super Bee. I've always liked the Super Bees, and I have one of each. Of course, neither one's in tip-top running shape or whatever, but I've got 2 of my favorite Mopars. But I thought about it, and as a kid, probably my favorite car, one of the first cars I ever liked, was a 1940 Ford Woody. And I don't know why. I think it's because I had the little Hot Wheels car, and it was my favorite one. It had little surfboards hanging out the back. But ever since then, I've always liked the Woody wagons. And pretty much everything pre-World War II. But I like the 46, 47, 48 Ford Woody wagons as well. But once it got to about 50, they really weren't Woodies as much to me. I like the earlier 30s and early 40s, mostly Woody wagons. I've always liked them. I don't know why, but if I could pinpoint it back, it would be that little Hot Wheels car that I had.
Do you have one of those too?
The Hot Wheels car I do. The real car I don't. I wish I did. Actually, I had a 1928 Ford Model A two-door coupe that I bought out of an estate sale. And at one point, I had actually thought about taking a Model A, basically chassis, fenders, running boards, cowl forward, and then building a wood body from the cowl back. I thought about it with that 28 Ford that I had, but I ended up thinking, I said, no, well, I can't take this body. The body was actually in really good shape. I'd still like to have another Model A, but I'm 6'2", so the little coupe, I was cramped inside that little car. So if I ever had another Model A, it would probably be a two-door sedan. But I'd still like to eventually do a Woody wagon Model A or 40 Ford. 40 Fords are too expensive, though.
I've learned more about you. Okay, next question here. And I'll preface this that I threw a bunch of hashtags in a show post announcing that you're coming on, and one of those hashtags was Blake Lively, which absolutely was just because she's hot and I think she's attractive. But when somebody called me out on it, I had a response, and here's what the call out was. It says, I see you're adopting the Finnegan trick of tagging random famous women. Ha ha. And that was completely true. But I said, not random at all. Her dad was on the Dukes. Mm-hmm. And he was, and you can explain that. And then you replied and you said, not only her dad, but her brother twice.
Yeah.
All right, have at it. How is lovely Blake Lively related to a brother and a dad on the Dukes?
Well, her dad is Ernie. Long story short, when he got married to their mom, she didn't take his last name. He took her last name, which is weird to me. So,
was that a Hollywood thing, or he literally, legally?
I've looked it up before, and I'm almost positive he took her last name. Because if you look up like IMDb, when he was on the Dukes, I can't remember what his last name was. Now I'm drawing a blank. Brown, that's it.
Yeah.
If you look at it, it's Ernie Brown Lively. But his real name was Ernie Brown.
You're kidding.
And
wow,
he took his wife's name, something along those lines. Because the early stuff, it just says Ernie Brown. So sometime after the Dukes, like if you watch the credits at the end of the episode, it says Ernie Brown. It doesn't say Lively. So anyways, the dad he was on the very first episode. Dobro was his name on the One-Armed Bandits. And, the little scene where the Bo and Luke meet their friends in the junkyard, and they go beating and banging cars going down the road to set up the roadblock. And I don't remember which car he's driving now. I think he was driving the El Camino.
Dobro Doolin. Yeah.
Yeah, Dobro Doolin. So he did that role there. And then also when they went to arrest Daisy Duke in front of the Boar's Nest and they chased each other around the parking lot, he's the one driving the flatbed C10 truck. And Roscoe's riding shotgun with them. But later on, when Cooter had his little spell where he left for a little while, you had
he was another cousin of Cooter, right?
Yeah. Can't remember his name on there. But anyways, he filled in, and they never, had a flashback calling him Dobro or anything. He just totally new character. And so those were the two times. But it was something Davenport. So he played that role for a short time. So that's her dad. And her brother, he was also on One-Armed Bandits. And he was the little boy that was in the back seat of the car spitting on the back glass.
Okay, and he was in a later episode where he's like Rod Moffat and was a basketball. This was Clark Griswold's kid, right?
Rusty, the original Rusty Griswold. His name's Jason Lively.
The original? No, he's in a European Vacation. The original is the guy from 16 Candles.
Yeah, that's right. He just did the European Vacation, but he played Rusty. But that's her brother. So in the very first episode, he's when they're at the orphanage. The little boy's in the back seat of the car, and Bo says, "What are you doing, son?" He says, he's spitting on the window, and he says, "Squirting flies or spitting flies or something like that." And then Bo leans out of the car and says, "I hate kids," or something.
I looked it up. His name was L.B. Davenport, which stood for
LB.
Long Street B. Davenport.
Yeah. And the other guy was B.B. Davenport.
B.B., you're right. It blows me away that Jason Lively and Blake Lively are related, because Jason Lively
he's homely,
not a handsome man, and Blake Lively is the epitome of what society says beautiful.
I've actually sent Jason Lively a message, and just, typical, "Hey, do you happen to have any pictures or any info or anything like that?" And he said, "No, I had a good time on it, working on the Dukes, and my dad, being there with my dad and all that." He said, "I don't have any pictures though."
Good for you. Only you would chase that guy down. Next time, ask about Blake.
Hey, I bet you he gets that all the time.
Is Blake available? I remember doing a little bit with Mike when we were going through all the celebrity nose jobs. I'm sure she's had one. It's a very well done one. It took a 9.9 to a 10. Okay, next question here. And there were a few people that asked about this, so I'm just going to kind of combine these in one. This is from Jordan Harkma 90. Tell us more about Corndog's C1 Corvette restoration. That build looks super rad.
Yeah, I would never own a C1 Corvette.
So your day job is at a collision repair shop, right?
That's right. We have 4 shops in the Jackson area. I'm the only one dumb enough to do restorations at a collision shop. Because most of the smart people would say, "No, if you give me that, I'm going to quit," or whatever. But I get stuck doing the restorations. But I'm real meticulous and just anal about little details and everything. So, and the owner of the shop is too. So he gives me his personal cars to restore. This is the 6th car I think I've done for him.
Does this have an Art Morrison chassis under it, or what?
It is a legit 57 Corvette. Not a fuel injected car. It was a manual transmission car. I'm thinking it was probably just your standard V8 with a 3-speed on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
It's been off the road since about 1979 or 1980. Someone completely blew the whole car apart. About 90% of the paint, removed all the paint, took it down to fiberglass, and then it sat outside for some of the time. And so you can imagine just raw fiberglass being outside in the weather, in and out, and every opening, like around the hood, all the way around the edge, just had stress cracks all the way around it. And so it was a basket case when he got it. It didn't have all the parts. It had the main parts, like, your windshield and the doors and the hood and all that. It had most of it, but it was about 80% complete. So the first thing we did was we ordered a Roadster Shop chassis from GM Performance. Got a LS3 525 horse and a 4L70 forge line wheels, and I just started hacking away at it. And I ended up replacing all of the exterior fiberglass panels except for the 2 doors, the deck lid, and the convertible top lid. Everything else all the way around the body has been totally replaced.
When you say replaced, I mean, you can't buy that stuff. You cut it out and made something new? There's
a few companies that sell replacement fenders, and they sell doors and hoods and deck lids and all that. But the doors, the deck lid, or both deck lids, they call the convertible top, they call that a deck lid, and then they call the other a trunk lid, but whatever. Both deck lids and both doors still had most of the paint on them, so the fiberglass was in much better shape, but the rest of the car had been stripped down. So there were stress cracks everywhere, and the only way you're going to fix that is as soon as you think you've cut out and fixed every single crack, you'll miss 10 of them. So the easiest thing to do is just do away with it and put new fiberglass. I put a new fiberglass front cap on, a new hood, rockers, quarters, rear valence, front valence, the inner fenders, handmade all of that out of fiberglass, the firewall. If you look at a factory firewall on a 57 Corvette, it's really busy and ugly, and I just cut all that out. And the passenger side is pretty simple. I basically mirrored the passenger side over to the driver's side and made all that out of fiberglass. had to cut out the trunk for the chassis to fit. And so anyways, I've been working on this car for about 3 years now. And I'm probably at the end of this week sending it out to upholstery to get a full leather upholstery done on it.
I am flipping through pictures here. So when you do these cars, because I know that you've done some Mopars and some other restorations.
Mostly Mopar, yeah.
Do you have carte blanche here? Does he tell you what he wants? What are you going by? Because it
depends on what day of the week it is, because
there's a lot of money tied up in this car. I mean, there's just undoubtedly a fortune in it.
Well, I started counting after I assembled the chassis. I've done everything except for the paint work on this car. I did all the wiring, all the mechanical work, everything, and I was standing over we just sent the chassis out to get powder coated and got it back, and I assembled everything, put it all together, put the wheels on it. Our painter painted the engine and transmission. Everything's red. Painted it, assembled it, got it all sitting on the chassis, and I started looking, and I started counting up and adding up. And there's $50,000 sitting right here just in the chassis and engine alone.
Mm-hmm.
And, just basically what I'm looking at, a rolling chassis with the engine set up. It adds up really quick.
His desire for a C1 Corvette, was that particular? Did he just have it?
He bought it here local. He bought 2 of them, actually. One was an older restoration and one was a basket case. He's always liked the 57 Corvettes. He's always liked the C1s, more so the single headlight, the earlier
Me too.
56 and 7s. The thing is, most of the time when you look at one that's been like resto modded or Pro Touring or whatever, it's always the 58 and up with the 4 headlights. So you don't see many with the single headlight built up this way. But he's always kind of liked them. And I was wrapping up the restoration on a 69 Charger 500. I was probably a month away from being finished, and then here comes the rollback into the shop, and it unloads a chassis, and then right off the bat, I was like, all right, well, we got another one. I don't even know what it is, but, whatever. And then about an hour later, another rollback rolls in, and it's got the Corvette on it. And then an enclosed trailer comes in, and it's box after box after box of just random parts. He had a lot of NOS parts, too. And believe it or not, you could actually still find quite a bit of NOS C1 Corvette stuff.
Really?
So, which a lot of it was junk, because when this guy back in the late 70s started pulling this car apart, he started buying up NOS stuff. We had NOS weather strips, NOS wire harnesses. It was just a ton of NOS stuff. But like all the rubber parts, it was junk. It's good if you like the wrap, the packaging, that's about it. But otherwise, you wouldn't want to put it on this car because, you can tell it's old. If you had a Survivor car, it would probably be good for that. But
just looking at the engine, just super cleanly wired. You got the coil packs all hidden down there. What are these valve covers?
I think it's called mycovers.com. I found them. They're heavy cast. I want to say they're aluminum, but they're made to mimic the original finned Corvette valve covers. There again, going into this project, I knew absolutely very little about C1 Corvettes, but I've learned the 57 Corvettes have a staggered bolt pattern, and like 58 and up, they made them back in line with the small block, just your typical small block Chevy valve cover. Well, 57, they're staggered. So we started off with a set of 57 valve covers, and they didn't really work, but you can take these valve covers off. They're the standard like 58 and up, but they're a lot thicker than the originals. They're actually pretty heavy, but the valve covers had a rough casting just like the originals, but you can pull that off of there and put it on just your typical small block Chevy. It's Comp Cams or Comp, whatever. Comp sells this adapter. It's a thin piece of, it's about 3/8 to 1/2 inch billet piece that's an adapter so that you can bolt an early valve cover onto a LS engine. So it's just basically an adapter that's got both bolt patterns on it. And so I have a set of those on there, and then I've got the Corvette valve covers on top of it. And then the injection system is from Borla. And when we got it, this was actually one of the earlier ones that they had. They've since kind of reworked some of this, so it's not exactly the same one that you would go and get today. But it has 8 throttle body injectors, like little velocity stack with no screens or anything. And they told us, really, unless you're going down dirt roads with the stacks hanging out of the hood, or you drive it daily, they said you really don't need air filters.
This is a GM engine? Is it a GM computer?
No, it's all Easy LS. Fast.
Easy EFI.
Yeah, Easy EFI. I've got Easy EFI, Easy LS, and Easy TCU.
Yeah, for the
I've
transmission.
got all the computers running all of that. The crazy thing about it, this is my first fiberglass car, total fiberglass car to do. This is my first LS to do. This is my first making from bumper to bumper wire harness. It's a learning experience for me. So
it looks great. I mean, it's a sensational, well detailed. What are the headers? At least tell me that. Are these stainless?
Ultimate headers, and we got those through Roadster Shop. They have the checklist when you're ordering the chassis. You know, check this. We told them what engine and transmission we were running and all of that. And of course, they have the option to order the headers. And of course, he went on and clicked it and ordered them. And then we have a local guy here that does really good TIG welding. So he came in and he did all of the exhaust. He's real picky and particular about details too. So the two of us, we sat down and figured out exactly where it was going to go. And really, with that chassis, you can't. I mean, you could do the exhaust coming out the tail end of the car, but it would have been very hard. So we've got side exhaust. It's tucked in. I notched the rocker panel. It's an oblong exhaust tip that he totally handmade and polished, and it's half tucked into the body and half hanging down. So it hugs the body really tight. Originally, the tail end of the car, the exhaust tips would come out the rear bumpers on the ends of each quarter panel. So the owner, he wanted that outside of the car to look pretty original, and he still wanted those bumpers. Well, now we don't have the exhaust coming out the center of those bumpers. And so I had to fill that void. And so the car never had backup lights. I actually used a trailer light, and I made it to where it fits into the hole perfect. So now the car has backup lights.
Cool.
Shaved off a few things, slicked up the body a little bit, and cleaned up the lines a lot. Got rid of the wipers, got rid of the cowl vent, got rid of most of the emblems. The only emblem on the car is right on the front of the car, right above the grill. And it's just the original cross flag emblem.
It's awesome, man. I love the attention to detail. We shouldn't go into details on this episode, but I'd love to do this in the future. What are some of the other cars? Because I know you're in a 69 Charger 500. Have you done a Super Bee or a Daytona or something?
I did two Superbirds. One was a 446 pack 4-speed Dana rear-end car. It's vitamin C orange with a white interior. The other Superbird was a lime green 444 barrel automatic on the floor and 8 3/4 rear end. It's lime green with a black interior. Then I did a 69 GTX 440 automatic on the column, 8 3/4. It's Y2 sunflower yellow. It's like kind of that pale yellow that every car company had. Black top and white interior. And then I did a 66 Dodge Coronet convertible. It was originally powder blue, 318 poly motor, just a cream puff blue on blue car. Did it Viper red with a black top, black interior, and dropped a 572 crate Hemi in it, Tremec 5-speed.
Mm-hmm.
The other car, I've done some work to. He bought this one at Barrett Jackson. It's a 70 Dodge Coronet RT, 440, 4-barrel, 4-speed, Dana rear end track pack car. Plum crazy purple, black top, black interior. I redid the engine bay on it and some little stuff here and there. When he got it from Barrett Jackson, it didn't even run.
Pushed that across the stage.
It did, but it had electronic ignition, and they're notorious for burning up those modules, and that was what happened in transit. You know, you can pull into a gas station, pump your gas, get back in, and the ECU will be burned up. So he has that, and he has the other C1 Corvette. It's black with red interior and silver coves, fuel-injected 3-speed car, 3 or 4. I think it's 3-speed.
What about the 69 Charger 500?
That's my favorite one of the bunch. That was the more recent one that I've done, Mopar for one. It's a 69 Dodge Charger 500, B5 blue, black top, black interior, white tail stripe, 440, 4-speed, Dana rear end, super track pack, and it's a Grand Spalding Dodge Mr. Norm's car. And if you were to Google Grand Spalding Dodge and look at the images, one of the very first pictures you'll see is an old picture of the dealership, and you'll see what is believed to be this car sitting in front of the dealership. And it's like the most famous picture of Grand Spalding Dodge. It's been featured in fairly recently. It was a Mopar Collector's Guide. And I've talked with Randy Holden, the editor there. I've known him for years. You know, if you start looking at the options on that car, like the options on this car, and then they only made 392 of these cars, what are the odds of them having 2 limited edition optioned out exactly the same way, and they're going to have 2 of them on the lot at the same time? Because this car was ordered in mid-'69 but was not sold until the fall of 70. And that picture, that famous picture, was taken in October of 69. So Randy, of course, Randy Holden, he's told me, he said, you would have a harder time proving that it's not that car than in proving that it is the car. Everybody wants to say it's the car in that picture was B7 blue, which is a little bit darker blue than the B5 blue. But there's a guy that I've been in touch with who runs like a 500 registry, and he has more than about 70% of the cars of the production in his list. And he says in his whole list, he does not have not a single B7 blue Charger 500. And I've never seen a picture of a legit one. So
B5 blue, if it's not going to be orange, it's going to be B5 blue. Mine was with the white interior over black, but that's just me. I love it.
I drove that car. It has 411 gears in it. 410. I think it's 410. 411. Same thing. It's fun to get out of the hole, but once you get into fourth gear, I mean, if you're trying to drive a distance, it's a pain.
What does Super Track Pack mean?
It's basically a drag prepped car. The Super Track Pack came with basically the drag gears. It came with what they call the Hemi 4-speed. It's 18 spline instead of the 23 spline. Just everything's extra heavy. The springs are extra heavy duty. It comes with disc brakes, the Bendix brakes that I've talked with you about, the 4-piston calipers. It's basically a race prepped, quote unquote prepped car.
But just a more rare Mopar package, and you can document that you got it and all that.
And actually, there's nothing on the VIN or the fender tag or anything on the car that says this came from Grand Spalding Dodge. I just actually got on one of the Charger forums and was talking with some people. These Aero car people, they follow these cars pretty close. And ever since like the early 70s, they've been following these cars. A few members have been around since then following these cars. And so I started posting about it. And then one guy says, hey, you really, he said, I'm not positive, but you really need to get in touch with this guy about this car because it very possibly could have come from Grand Spalding Dodge. And so I contacted the guy, and sure enough, it did. But then he wouldn't talk to me anymore. I'm not the owner of the car, so even though I do all the research and everything. So he contacts him, and he bought out all of the paperwork, all the office and everything at Grand Spalding Dodge. And if you can prove that you own a vehicle, then he will sell you the original paperwork. And so we've got all the original paperwork, the bill of sale, all of where they checked off the options when they ordered the car. And so we've got all that paperwork tying it back to Grand Spalding.
That's amazing. I can see why that's one of your favorites too.
That, and it's a Charger. I mean, it could have been just a 318 Charger, and, same color combination. It would probably still be my favorite of the bunch of his.
It's hard to beat the love for the Charger. I get it. I got it. Yeah. All right.
But no, I will never own a C1 Corvette.
Okay. Roundabout. Let's see here. This is from, when we were planning this, we thought, man, what if we run out of questions? We better review an episode. And then I was thinking, well, it's not going to happen. Whatever.
Justin has diarrhea of the mouth. He will never stop talking.
You should see what we cut out, kids. Okay, this is from Retrofit Cycle Works. Where were the roofs cut out of the Generals that were headed for the junkyard? Something to do with the roll bars or liability?
It was basically, at first they started sending these cars off to the junkyards, and then the junkyards were selling them out the back door. And Warner Brothers got wind of it. They went and repurchased the cars back from the people who bought them and made sure that they got it disposed of properly. And so they told the Vazes that any cars that you deemed no good and totaled, they said they want you to remove the doors. Of course, they'd save the wheels, but they basically wanted you to remove everything that would make someone believe that it was a General Lee. Of course, now, if you see this cut up orange shell going down the road, you're going to know what it is. But they figured once you cut the roof off, chances of someone going and repairing that is very unlikely. So. Yeah. There was rumors about people, about them cutting the roof skins off so that they can cut production time down and, just rivet a roof skin on. And I don't think they ever did that, really. They just did it just because Warner Brothers said, hey, if you're going to work for us, you need to remove all this stuff off the cars. And so they just ended up having a pile of parts left over, whether they were good or bad or whatever. I don't think they would send them out with doors, whether the door was caved in or not. They'd still pull the door off and they'd still cut the roof off.
Is there on the Values Days Ranch a pile of doors and roof skins?
Maybe not.
Dun, dun, dun.
If you go to the museum, they actually have a lot of them on display. They got a little walkthrough museum. And, of course, I skimmed right past everything when I was there. Skimmed right past everything and went straight to the General Lee's. And they have, I forget how many roof skins hanging on the wall and doors and wheels and all kinds of good stuff.
Awesome. Let's see. Jiro_T5. Was there any significance to the limos used in the episode Limo 1 is Missing?
Not really. Just kind of like we were talking about earlier about, either Warner Brothers owned it already or they just leased it from one of these picture car vehicle service places. I'm thinking they may have actually owned it because they used it in Limo 1 is Missing, but then they also used it again in the Arrest Jesse Duke episode where they had car strippers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
the girls
were
taking apart cars, and then Cooter and Daisy acted like they were some highfalutin couple that broke down on the side of the road, and they ended up pulling a bunch of parts off of that car too. So it's the same car.
Okay. Stephen Crowtown. How many times did they film the General driving at night? Obviously, lighting would make night shots difficult, but I can't remember ever seeing it driving with the headlights on. I can think of at least 3 times, maybe more. He's right. It does not happen that often. But do you know the episodes off the top of your head?
I can visually see it. I know the your favorite episode, season 7, where the little alien guy comes to town.
Damn it! So I was purposely going to avoid that one, but yeah, that's when we review that episode. I will be drinking my way through it. It is so awful.
It's been so long since I saw that episode, and I was sitting down with my son. He wanted to watch something. Dukes of Hazzard. And so anyways, I was thinking, well, whatever. We've seen all of these other ones. And I was like, whatever, we'll watch this alien one, whatever. It has some really good interior shots. When that little creature's like hiding in the back seat and the floorboard and all that, they have the interior lit up and they're shining right down in the floorboard and you can see all the upholstery. Of course, I'm sitting here looking at all that and I'm screenshotting and stopping and watching and looking at every last little detail.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the last few cars. The 17 Survivors, chances are the interior is almost exactly the same way as it was then. And so there was one car, you see it a lot, and some point before Warner Brothers bought it, the previous owner recovered the seats, and it has like this crazy looking pattern on it. It's like a diamond pattern on the seats. And of course, they just spray paint them tan. And so you see that car a ton at the very end of the series.
I do remember the close-up shots in there. It's an alien on the show, though, is the problem.
Hey,
so,
ET was popular. They were trying to get anything they could off of ET.
Season 1, they are assisting hookers in RVs. Season 7, they're toting around aliens named Little Cousin.
Season 1, they talk about marrying their cousins, and
Season 7, they have
from
aliens.
One extreme to the other.
Also named cousins.
In the first season, also in High Octane in Georgia, when they pull into the courthouse, I don't know if you remember, the headlights are open.
Headlights are open. I think it's also season 1 where they have the guy that fakes the plague.
Yeah.
The episode starts out with the headlights. The weirdest thing, I have a 69 Charger now. It looks timeless to me, but when it looks so strange with the headlight doors open and you see the round headlight, all of a sudden it kind of looks like an old car. And then you put the headlights back down and it looks completely timeless again.
What you need to do is and this is only on 68s, but behind the headlight doors, they have these plastic bezels. It kind of finishes off the panel for when the headlight doors are open. It has that same grill pattern. That's only on 68s. I have a set of those, and I'll probably put them on my car just because I like the way it looks. It finishes it off nice. But I don't know why they didn't carry that over to 69 because it's the same exact thing. I don't know if they just thought it wasn't, didn't serve a purpose, but I like them. So
let's see here. This is V8 Rumblin'. What is the status of the Wheelstander General Lee?
That car, to catch everybody up, that was Rich Septon's car. supposed to have been used in one of the very last episodes, Papa Willie and the Dukes drive off in the sunset, but it has a blown 440 in the back seat. And so it actually has the same thing that Finnegan used on, I don't know what those things are called.
That V-drive thing or whatever that is?
Yeah, it has one of those in the trunk. It's made to pop wheelies. And so Rich Septon had it, did not finish the car in time, and the producers did not like that you can see a blown 440 sitting in the back seat, so they did not use it. Series was canceled.
And it had like slicks on the back too, right? I mean, it like...
Yeah, it had 15 by 10 rear wheels. It was a drag car. So anyways, he ended up buying it from Warner Brothers after the series ended. Technically, it's not a screen-used General Lee, but it's pretty close to being something like that. So he went on and finished up the car, and it was in Popular Hot Rodding magazine, and had a feature like in fall of 85, I think it was. He had the car all through the years, and then sometime in the 90s, I think it was like maybe 90 or 91, he got a divorce. His wife, ex-wife, whatever, either took possession of the car or before the judge decided what was going to happen, she or her lawyer or whatever sold the car. So in his eyes, it was wrongfully taken from him, but in her eyes, it was going to be hers anyway. So that's where the bickering back and forth started. And then it changed hands a couple times, and it ended up in Oregon, and then it ended up in Washington State. He got the car back. He actually did like a little repo deal and got the car back. And but then took it to a show, and the same way that he got it back, she got it back. Shows up with a title with the law, local law, and then, hey, this is my car. That's my car. I'm taking it with me. So that's the same thing he did to get the car back. She took it to a show. And so anyways, she wound up with it, and he has since passed away. And his daughter, she'd love to have the car back, but of course she doesn't have the means and doesn't really just burn out on it. Oh, and right after he passed away, she put it up on eBay, and everybody thought that was kind of a crappy thing to do.
Yeah.
But you can see in the pictures that it was in a storage facility. You just see rows and rows of storage units, and she wheeled it out, washed it down, took pictures, and of course pushed it back up in there. And it did not sell. She still has it. I say she has it. It's probably someone in her family, maybe her current husband. I'm not really sure.
So it's still alive.
Yeah, but it's tucked away. You probably will not see it out again, because every time she even posts a picture or does anything with it, she just gets all kinds of hate mail and all that because of the way that went about doing it. And actually, no, I take it back. His ex-wife is not the current owner. She has since sold it, back in the early 90s. So the new owner, that's who they've been going back and forth with, because what I call the new owner, of course, they thought they bought it legal because they had a title and all this kind of stuff. So the ex-wife, she's out of the picture completely. There was someone at Mopar Collector's Guide. I'd have to go back and look exactly which issue it is. And Randy Holden actually called me one day and says, hey, what do you know about the Wheelstander? Because I have this guy that just mailed us, it's not emailed, just dropped an envelope in the mail with developed pictures of the Wheelstander sitting in a barn, covered in dust. So anyways, he called me and asked me what I knew about it. And I said, well, that's news to me if that's the case. And he said, yeah, he literally said he was going to buy an air compressor or something off of Craigslist. And while he was there, this was sitting next to it. The guy agreed that he could take pictures of it, but then he sent pictures to Mopar Collector's Guide and said, hey, here's some pictures. So that's been within probably 3 to 4 years ago. That's the last I've heard of it. There again, it's tucked away somewhere, not being enjoyed by the fans.
I didn't know it was still alive. For some reason, I thought it was in a collector. So I guess it is interesting to me that at least a collector doesn't have it yet. Chris Dunlap 01. How was the roof lettering different from the Values A era to the Warner Brother eras? Any change to the font, shade, color, border, or letter spacing?
They're all different. Of course, the Georgia letters were all hand painted, but they were pretty close to each other. And then the Values A's, they basically went off of when the Georgia cars, there was 3 Georgia cars that were shipped from Georgia to California when they moved production to California. So they basically just looked at those cars and said, okay, we'll go with this. And so I don't know if they started hand lettering them and then went to a decal, or if they went straight to a decal or what. But the Georgia and the Valiuzé era is pretty similar. There's a little bit different spacing. Like the Georgia letters, the RAL on General, the ends all kind of touch each other. And the rest of the letters are all kind of spaced out. And on Lee, the L and the first E touch each other. And then they're kind of spaced out. Those are the Georgia. But by the time they went to the Valiuzés, the letters, the colors and the borders and all that look pretty much the same, but the letters are spaced out a little bit. The earlier ones were real kind of a bold letter with a thicker white border. And then the Warner Brothers era, they were pretty close to being the same shade of blue, just a little bit lighter maybe, but it had a thinner white border, and the letters were spaced out a lot more. And it was a little bit smaller font, I guess you would say. But then when they went to the reunion cars, the letters changed completely, and it was a lighter blue. And then the movie, it went back to the dark blue, but then the font changed. Everything changed from one to the other. You can kind of tell which kind of car it is just by looking at them. If you look at the roof of a known Georgia car and the roof of a known Valiuzé car, and you just look at and kind of compare them, you can kind of pick them apart and see what the differences are.
So I have movie car decals on it, and you said just swap out the General Lee decals for your season 2, season 3 look. So that's what I did. So when I contacted your decal guy, he asked me if I wanted light or dark, and I just didn't reply very quickly. And he had already sent me the right ones, whatever it was I needed. But now I don't remember. Was it light or dark that he sent me?
It should kind of match the blue on your flag.
Yes.
He said that's usually like what most people prefer.
What about the spacing between General and Lee? I've noticed in some of the season 4 stuff, the spacing, like they're like a mile apart, and in others they're kind of close.
Right. And that kind of jumped around from car to car as well. There was a couple, I think, in season 3. I mean, it looked like 2 hands wide between General and Lee. Mm-hmm. And then some of them are pretty decent, just a typical gap. I think about season 4, they started to get a little bit more uniform and start to take shape a little bit better. Season 3, they were still kind of sloppy, like you like.
Good. Thank you. Even though I'm not making my car sloppy, that's my favorite area of sloppy.
Well, it's
cars.
like no rhyme or reason. It's just kind of let's get them done and get them out the door.
I just like that era of TV.
Yeah.
It was all shot in 4:3. Nobody will ever blow this up on a huge high def TV in the future. You can do whatever you want, right? That's
this is never going to VHS. We're not going to worry about it.
Never. They'll never see it again. Let me just get a few comments here because as we unedited, we're well over an hour here. So this is from Melon of the Sea. No question for Corndog offhand, but a thank you. His information that he contributes to the show is great. He's gone from guest star to rock star on the show. I hope you never run out of facts and trivia about the show, cast, and cars. So I want to make sure we got that.
Well, I appreciate it. I hope I never run out of facts either. But towards the end of the series, everything gets just like the cars. Everything kind of blends in and everything looks the same after a while. And, they get a little bit cleaner on their production cars. So it makes it a little bit tougher to pick out stuff. But there's still more stuff to talk about, I guess.
Well, we think you're the greatest, and frankly, if you run out of stuff, just make it up. Nobody will know. You have that level of credibility. Yeah. This is from Stephen Crowtown again. I don't know if it's already been addressed. I'm working my way through the episodes of the podcast, but what engine and trans was in Uncle Jesse's truck?
I forgot to ask my friend. He actually owns one of the trucks. He either owns it or he owned it and sold it to a friend, but one of the trucks is over in Australia. I'm almost positive he said it was a 351, and I think it's a 3 on the tree. And there's 2 Uncle Jesse trucks that survived. His is white, and the other one is actually brown, and it's over on the East Coast, either in Pennsylvania, Virginia, somewhere right in there.
Like it was repainted brown?
For the very last episode, the bad guys, that kidnapped Boss Hogg.
Yeah.
Open night at the Boars. That's an Uncle Jesse truck that was repainted brown.
Oh, no kidding.
That one's still around. I've only seen a couple pictures of it, and these are old pictures. And of course, it's not in the engine bay or anything. And I know who owns it, but I have not talked to him about it. But I would like to, so I can say I've talked about that one too. but I don't know what that one is. I would assume they're probably 302s, 351s, or even just the little inline six was a good torquey motor for those trucks, so it could very well be one of those as well.
Probably had good gears in them too. Let's see here. This might be the last show. I should have done the compliment as the last thing. Way to go, Robert. I'm supposed to have better broadcast skills than that. Here's the last real show. Cooley 389. He says, I have a question about steering wheels. In the show, often you see the steering wheel like the one in your car. And he's talking about my car, which is that kind of 3-spoke sport wheel. That is my favorite wheel. Other times you see a different style entirely that is thicker with a U-shaped chrome trim piece.
Right.
Why are there two different styles, and where does the thicker wheel come from? Was that an option?
The one that he's talking about is the standard steering wheel, and it's just your typical 3-spoke steering wheel with a 3-spoke padded. That's what he's calling the thick part, the padded horn pad, and it has about a half horn ring around the bottom half of it, and that was just your typical standard Charger steering wheel. You upgraded and got the rally package, or you could just option out for the sport wheel. That's what yours is. It's a wood grain simulated wheel, 3-spoke. It's just a kind of a racier looking steering wheel.
I know it's a dumb thing, but when I was shopping and when my car had that on it, I remember thinking I liked the car. My adoptive grandparents had a 72 Dodge wagon, and it had that other steering wheel in it. And whenever I see that in the General Lee, I think wagon. I don't think sweet Charger. Another wheel that you see a lot on screen is the 68s, the standard wheel on a 68,
yes,
which is a very distinctive. It can't be bigger diameter, but sometimes you think it is. It looks huge.
Mm-hmm. They're all like 15-inch steering wheels, and it just has the center horn pad on it. It's nothing fancy. It almost looks like your stripped down basic stripped down model. And actually, my car, even though it's a 69, it had the 68 steering wheel on it. There again, I've got the original steering wheel that came off of my car, so it's going back on it.
Really? Was that built that way, or that's just somebody threw that on there?
No, that car was so hodgepodge together. There's no telling where it came from, but that's what it had on it.
Right.
The other 69, there's, of course, all three reunion cars were 69s, but the TV series car, it had the steering wheel like yours, the 3-spoke wood grain wheel. The other two, mine and the other car, both had 68 steering wheels on it, even though they were both 69. So I don't know if mine started with it and then they searched for another one, or it was a coincidence or what, but that's the way it was.
Yeah, I prefer the sport wheel.
There was a little Chrysler driving simulator that you used to see in schools and like driver's ed classes and all that, and it looked kind of like a little arcade type game. And it was a bucket seat, and it had like half of a dash, and it had the not the rally gauges like yours, but it had the old bar style speedometer on it. They all had the wood grain 3-spoke wheels on it.
No kidding.
And so yeah, you'll see those, and every once in a blue moon you'll see where someone's found one or whatever in some of the Mopar magazines, but every one that I've seen so far has had the 3-spoke steering wheel on it.
Mine has some decent gaps in the ring itself, like the simulated wood grain. There's probably about a 3/4 inch chunk just taken out of the top of it, and I don't know if that split and broke away a long time ago, if it shrunk, or
they're notorious for it.
How do you fix them?
There's a guy, I think in Texas, from the Charger 500 that I did, we sent the original steering wheel off to him, and he sent it back, and it looks beautiful. He polishes up the spokes and cleans them all up really nice, and he fills all those little gaps in the steering wheel, and then he goes in, I don't know how he does it, but he hand paints the wood grain back on it, and it looks awesome. I have to give you his information.
That is a wheel that's repopped as well, isn't it?
Correct. I think they're like $500.
What did it cost for that guy to do it?
He's pretty upfront about his pricing and stuff, though. I'll look and dig up his information.
No, that'd be great. That concludes all of our questions. Everybody, thank you for sending those in. And yes, I should have ended on the compliment. You are a huge part of this show, so thank you for all that you do here.
No problem at all. Always have fun doing it.
Here's the things that I still need to find, because I have found almost everything I need, and I almost got my car back on the road here. Just an update for you. I shimmed the bejesus out of the power steering brackets. I got it as pretty close to the pictures you sent me of some of your original stuff as I could. I think I do have the wrong belt on the car. I think there is a different belt that will fit a little bit better, definitely on the crank, but
tighter V in it.
Yeah. So I'm going to look around for one of those. I got to run an 8-gauge wire. I have a 1-wire alternator in it now that I got from Holly, and I'm just going to run an 8-gauge wire over to the starter relay.
Every restoration I do, I'll go in, and even if it's OE correct, I go in there and I add that extra wire and tape it in with the original harness. And unless you really know what you're looking for, most people don't even notice.
You run that from the alternator back up to the firewall all the way to the driver's side and then back up the starter relay? Is that what you're doing?
Yes, and I'll put it on the big stud on the starter relay.
Okay.
Kind of like water. Electricity is going to take path of least resistance. And so you leave everything wired up just like the factory had it, but you have that big wire going from the alternator to the starter relay, and most of your current is going to go through that big wire.
So your ammeter is probably not
correct.
Totally
it's
reading.
Not accurate.
Okay, my car didn't even have an ammeter anymore. I had already eliminated.
You converted it.
Yeah. Well, it's better to not have a fire. That's why you're doing, even you, OE correct man himself, you're still cheating.
Right.
And then
it's only cheating if you get caught.
That's true. Here's what I still lack. I need vintage Moroso valve covers for a 383.
Yeah.
I need a radio, and I'm thinking about putting a line lock in it.
Okay.
I don't know if that was a TV car thing or if that would just make it more fun.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
It would definitely be more fun. And what you can do is you can take the locking mechanism out of your emergency brake. Makes those bootlegger turns a lot easier.
I'm all for that. I was looking at it while I got a new Speedo cable. I melted the last Speedo cable, turned out. That's why the Speedo wasn't working. So I got a new one. While I was under there, I was looking at that pedal. Well, that concludes today's show here. If you enjoy these deep dives, send us a note. Let us know. When you listen to this show, take a picture of it on your phone and post it on Instagram or Facebook and tag us on there. That's the best way we're learning to get the news out. We're also going to start putting some videos up on Instagram TV.
Oh, yeah.
That's coming here shortly. When Mike gets back, I think we will do what's the Roscoe episode that's coming up here?
$10 Million Sheriff. 2-part episode.
I suspect you will have lots of details.
I hope to. We can pull some information. We'll find something to talk about.
The Rolls Royce has returned from the season 2, whatever it was, of those kissing cousins that had the...
Yeah, that Rolls Royce, just like the limo, that Rolls Royce has used a few times.
Time again. Hey, I got one question for you.
Okay.
Dave Hall, he owns Restore a Muscle Car.
Yeah.
He does the annual Bandit Run event. And we have jokingly talked about doing a Dukes event, something like that. Think that would be fun?
I think it would. They've tried doing that before from Cooter's place, like from Nashville to Gatlinburg. And I think it did okay, but I don't think they advertised it really well.
This is a Kibbe and Finnegan show featuring Corndog event here. This is as dumb as it's going to get, with a side of fun.
Well, like we've talked about before, I think we can have some fun in Georgia. We can get a group together and hit up all the filming locations and all that, and we can arrange something that would be fun.
I want to end it with a stunt show, a user-participated stunt show. I want people to drive their own cars, and then we'll have one stunt guy come in and do some real stuff.
With everybody's car and just tear them all to pieces.
Yeah, that seems to be popular. Well, Corndog, thank you as always. Everybody, thank you for listening. You can get a show at kfshowshirts.com. You can support the show at patreon.com/kfshow. And you can find us on the interwebs. We're Kibbe and Finnegan Show on Instagram. And you got 2, right? 2 handles?
Yeah, Corndog05. I just post car stuff and just randomness. And then I also have Real General Lee. I post, of course, mostly Dukes of Hazzard and General Lee information there. Some of these Dukes pages, they'll post, just a picture and say, here's a picture. They won't tell you anything about it. But I like to kind of, if I can tell a little bit backstory on the picture, what's actually happening in the picture, I try to do that. So, but yeah, those are my 2.
Sounds good, man. Well, you have a good day, and I will catch you later.
You too. We'll talk to you soon.